Has been quite a slow reading year. Crimes Against Women, Crimes by Women, Worlds Upended. This is classic Pineiro. It might be my favorite book of this year. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I've made it back home to the US and fingers crossed that's gonna last, but I feel pretty good jet lag wise. Like I think I got a good night's sleep yesterday, but we are less than 2 weeks from the end of 2024 and it's also kind of like the best and coziest time to read. I feel like hopefully you guys have some time off around this time of year and you have some time to yourselves and missed all the family and friend chaos to get some reading done as well. So welcome to sort of a little end of year read with me vlog. I'll talk about this more next week when I talk about all the books I've read in 2024, but it has been quite a slow reading year, especially at the beginning of the year for me because I was working on my thesis and graduating, and so I'm really trying to play catch up now and get some good books in before December is over. So for this video, I just finished a book called Butter by Asako Yuzuki this morning. I'm hoping to read a book called, I think, Time of the Flies by Claudia Pineiro throughout the next couple of days, as well as hopefully get started or get a good chunk through Martyr by Kaveh Akbar in the next couple of days as well, and hopefully log that for you guys. Just to start with Butter, like I mentioned, I finished the last chapter this morning, which is very exciting. This is a book that was translated from Japanese and it's quite thick. It's around like 500 pages or so, I would say. And it's about a journalist named Rika who's investigating the case of a woman chef who entertained a lot of sort of older men and is now being accused of murdering 3 of them. And it's sort of the building relationship between Rika and this woman, as well as just a greater commentary on food and the role of women in Japanese society. The blurb and the cover really marketed it as sort of like a thriller, and I would say that's absolutely not what it is at all. So if you're looking for sort of like a mystery novel or just something that is really plot-based, this is definitely not that. But I would say it was a really interesting delve into like sort of character and also the world of food and a sort of greater commentary on what food service and sort of food can mean. Is it a liberation for women? Is it a role that they're forced into? What does it mean to really want to serve other people? In the case of these women, is it something that's giving into the patriarchy or is it something that is able to resist it? I would say these questions are much more at the core of the book, and it's actually a lot more about Rika, the journalist's sort of growth throughout the book, and the murders and sort of the mystery behind them are very secondary. To be honest, for like the first half of the book, I was kind of bored. It was a little bit of a slog, and the only things that were getting me through were the food descriptions, which were pretty good. And especially as someone who doesn't even like butter, which is like obviously the core food of this book, I was really getting into all the food descriptions and like just getting very hungry while reading this, which I think is also a really fun experience. And I do feel like the same things are kind of repeated over and over, and there's like 10 to 20% of the ideas in the book that might have been able to be pared down and made sharper. But as the book goes on, especially towards the second half, I would say it gets a lot more interesting. We feel a lot closer to the characters, they get closer to each other as well, and the figure of the woman chef becomes a lot more complex and is less idealized, which I just thought was really interesting. And I think especially by the end, the questions of like service, femininity, reclaiming one's relationship to food, reclaiming one's relationship to your community through food, etc., were much clearer and much more interesting than what was presented in the beginning, which seemed to be a little bit more two-dimensional, like, oh, body positivity, or like not shaming women for their decisions, whatever. I felt like that was very basic, but it gets a lot more complex toward the end. And so I do think it's worth sticking with. I would just say it's not your fault if you're slogging through a little bit of the beginning. And the next book I'm going to read, like I mentioned, is Time of the Flies by Claudia Pineiro, and I've just borrowed it over my library overdrive on my Kindle. I'm reading this one because I really want to read more of Pineiro. If you guys don't know, she wrote Elena Knows, which is one of my favorite books, and she's just really well known for writing incredible, like, sort of mystery, murder novels, like thriller novels that also deal with a lot of societal issues at their core, and Elena Knows was absolutely chef's kiss perfect, my ideal book, if you will, and so I've been trying to read more of her work. Recently, I read A Little Luck at the beginning of this year, which I'll talk about in next week's video as well, but I didn't actually love it as much, and so I'm just excited to read more of her canon and see what I think about her as a writer and just interact with her words a bit more. So I saw that this was the newest one that the same translator, Francis Riddle, had done of Pineiro, and I decided to pick it up. I don't really know what it's about, so I just have the blurb up here. It says 15 years after poisoning her husband's lover, Inez is released from prison and left to put together a life. Her old friend Manka is out now too, and they decide to work together in pest control. But Senora Bonar, one of their clients, wants them to do more than kill bugs. She wants their expertise and their criminal past to help kill her husband's lover too. Crimes against women, crimes by women, worlds upended. This is classic Pineiro. That actually sounds so good. I'm so excited. I love women scheming, and I love these situations where it's hard to tell who's wrong and right, the blurred lines of morality. I love it. So yeah, I'm not sure how quick of a read it'll be, but I'm going to try and get through it in the next 2 days, hopefully. And like I mentioned, I'm going to be reading it on my Kindle. I'll obviously tell you guys my thoughts as I go through it and what I think afterwards. And then if we have time, we'll get to this one, which I've talked about before, but is about a man who's sort of obsessed with the ideas of martyrs and family and immigration and all that fun stuff. And I'm really excited for this one as well. So fingers crossed, wish me luck in getting through these books, and I hope that you are also having a good end of your reading year as well. Let's crush this daily reading challenge or just end the year off with a good note. So yeah, I think I'm gonna head to my library now and just get some reading done. I'm really trying to go to less cafes in the US in particular because it's expensive, and I really think I should take advantage of my amazing public library. So yeah, I think we're gonna head out now. Let's go.
Train ride just to see you, ride for hours just to please you. You don't know how much I need you, 'cause you're my home away from away from being alone.
So I was able to read 10 chapters of Time of the Flies today, which is about a third of the book. And I'm already like completely hooked. I'm really enjoying it. I feel like it's feeling like all the things I loved about Pineiro, which are very believable, sort of fully fleshed out characters with very interesting motives, very simple but engaging dialogue and writing, and also a plot that is automatically interesting from the get-go. Right now we have our main character Inez, who just served a bunch of time for killing her husband's lover, and has gotten out and now has started a business. She does insect fumigation and her friend does detective work, and like the title suggests, flies are a really big theme throughout the book, and insects are a big theme in general, and I feel like that has been really fun, just reading about them and seeing like what do they sort of represent. But basically they've just gotten an offer from one of their clients to be paid a lot of money to sort of be an accomplice in poisoning this client's husband's lover. So very similar situation to what Inez was in at the beginning of the book, and they're sort of debating whether to do it or not, but it's told through a bunch of different perspectives, some third person, some first person, and there's one chapter where I even jumped between characters, and I thought it would almost be jarring because I noticed that their perspective switches were happening pretty frequently, but actually I feel like it's honestly pretty flawless. Like each voice and each character are so clear, and yet they're so intertwined through the book already that it feels very natural that they're sort of all put together like this, which is something I think Claudia Pineiro does so well, and I'm so happy to be reading her work again. I'll obviously give you guys my thoughts when I'm done with the book, hopefully tomorrow. But lastly for today, I just wanted to talk really briefly about the importance of translation in translated work and reading translated literature, like the quality of a translation. Obviously it's not rocket science that a translation like makes a huge impact in how you read a book and also just like what it feels like and your response to it. But I feel like having read Butter this morning and then reading Time of the Flies now, I'm really feeling the contrast of a good translation versus sort of like just a mid one. With Butter, even though like I said, by the end I felt really interested in the concepts, the translation was tripping me up multiple times throughout the book. And again, I've never read the original, I can't read in Japanese, so I wouldn't know if they're just replicating sort of odd little word choices or like, you know, a tone that's in the original. But to me, it felt like a lot of the language was a little stilted, especially the dialogue, and there were just moments where it's like, I'm just not really sure what that word means. But there are just moments where it felt like it was a very literal translation maybe, but it didn't actually feel like realistic to how people talk or even what the description description of this like taste or food would be. And it just felt kind of like clunky at times, which I think is unfortunate with translated work because it creates this barrier to you really connecting with the characters and the story. And by the end, sometimes all you remember is like the language of it that felt a little odd. But with Time of the Flies, and I felt this with Elena Knows as well, Francis Riddle's translations are really, really seamless. And even better, there's a lot of moments where I'm like actually amazed at the way she translates things, and I'm wondering what it's like in the original. Again, I can't read Spanish, but I actually wish I could. For example, there's a part today where a character is saying that someone else was drunk, but she says like in cups or something, and the whole point is that she's using kind of a strange metaphor, and our friend is kind of like, why are you talking like that? Like why wouldn't you say like trashed or smashed or like blacked out instead or something? And it was just like these idioms and words that she chose were so perfect for exactly what they needed to be in that dialogue, if that makes sense, even though they're really English specific and probably don't exist in the same way in the original. And yeah, I feel like the language is just only enhancing my connection to the story, even though there are elements that are left in Spanish and stuff. Like I don't think it feels like completely like anglicized, which I think is another extreme, but it feels just like that perfect, satisfying translation that feels like hopefully you're getting just like the vibe and the tone of the original work. And those types of books are why I read translated literature. They're also why I want to translate and what inspire me a lot in my own stuff. And yeah, I just wanted to share my thoughts on the two translations and also hopefully give you some food for that as you read other translated work. Maybe take a little bit more time to consider the role of the translator and think about, you know, what you appreciate or what you don't and what you look for in translated work. I think that's always really fun. So I think I'm going to call it at that for today, but I'm really excited to read the rest of this book tomorrow. Hopefully I can finish it tomorrow because it's going so fast, and I'm very interested in if the women are going to like actually do this murder or not. And I'm excited to tell you my thoughts on it. Good night for now. So it's my third day reading Time of the Flies, and I'm just over halfway through and really enjoying it so far. I'm really excited to finish it and also talk to you guys about it because I feel like it actually might be one of my favorite books of the year already. But yesterday I got some reading done in the morning, and then I ended up catching up with some hometown friends, and then my family watched a movie, like a holiday movie at night, and so I didn't actually get that much reading done, and so I'm sort of playing catch up today, and hopefully we'll finish the book. Maybe this is a little bit too much like behind the scenes, but if you guys want to know the, you know, realistic life of uploading videos once a week, just because right now I'm filming and uploading in the same week, I don't think I'll be able to get to another book in this video. So this has turned into a slightly unintentional like reading Time of the Flies vlog, but hopefully that's still okay with you guys. To be totally honest, this is why the world of booktube scares me a little bit, just because it can feel like there's a pressure to read a certain number of books, to read at a certain pace, or to stick to your word. Like if you said you were going to read this on your TBR, to read it as soon as possible and provide you guys with my review and things like that. And literally no one on here has ever said anything like that, but I think it's just a pressure I feel to try and produce the best stuff for you guys. But in reality, and I don't know if some of you guys can relate, but reading is one of those things that is like truly such an important like hobby in my life, in the sense that it's something I like love the most, and it's purest form of reading, and I try not to attach any sense of like obligation or achievement or whatever to it, because I think as soon as you do that, things kind of get a little warped. But for reading, which is sort of like my outlet, I really try not to feel that much pressure. And I think sometimes that creating the content about books and wanting to create the best content for you guys and seeing what other people are doing and stuff, I just don't feel like an adequate enough reader, which I realize sounds hilarious and is ridiculous and genuinely is. But yeah, it's just something I've been thinking about as I approach making reading content and book content. And I guess this is just a way of me telling you guys, like, this is who I am, this is the type of reader I am. I feel like I'm very much someone who would probably spend more of their energy in life and work than reading, but that's not to say reading is any less important in my life. I just think I really like that it's something I do only when I feel like I really want to do it, and for books that I really feel like I want to read in that moment, and that list is also constantly changing. For example, I did a video recently on my like end of year reading list, and I still want to read all of those books eventually, hopefully in 2025, but given that we're almost at the end of the year and I'm spending a lot of time with family now, I just don't think I'll be able to get to all of them. And sometimes I feel almost like guilty about that, like should I be making more of an effort to get to all those books that I can, you know, show you guys that I've stuck to my word and read everything that I said I would. But I think part of the fun of reading, part of the fun of loving something is the spontaneity of it, and also like choosing what you want in that moment and just enjoying it. And I think I'll talk to you guys more about this in my end of year reading wrap up and also like sort of my new year goals video. But I don't think I will ever be the reader who sets a list for themselves for the month and tries to complete every single book in its exact order, or set sort of like a pages goal for a week or whatever. I think the yearly sort of book number challenge is the most I can do, and I also very rarely stick to it. Like I usually read less or more or something. So hopefully you guys relate to that a little bit and you can enjoy sort of like the random content that I create about various books. I'm always so excited to share what I'm reading with you guys, and I just wanted to share some of my thoughts because I think as my channel has been going more towards like bookish content, I just don't necessarily want to feel like that sort of immense pressure of the label of a booktuber maybe, or like whatever that entails. Hopefully you guys are okay with just a YouTuber who loves books. I think that's what I would like to be, and hopefully someone who can lead you guys towards books that you love as well. So that being said, like I mentioned, I think I'm going to finish Time of the Flies today and give you guys my thoughts on it as the end of this video. But I just wanted to mention that my true end of year reading list, the books I'm going to read in the next sort of like week or so, are Martyr. Hopefully I will start this as soon as I finish Time of the Flies. Also, constant shout out to Nathan at Nathan Snook for lending me his copy. Thank you so much, Nathan. And sort of the rogue book I'm looking to finish the year off with is Metamorphosis and Other Stories, are basically sort of a collection of Kafka's work. This is actually the most random selection for me. I haven't read Kafka outside of school, and the last time I read him was about like 6 or 7 years ago in high school, and even within sort of like the classic writers, I don't necessarily remember liking him that much. But for me, there's certain seasons, certain days and weeks of life that I just really crave like a classic work of literature, and it's very rare. So I try to cave and listen to the feeling whenever it comes because it's so infrequent. I was feeling the itch for some really beautiful, like stood the test of time writing, and so I went through sort of my existing bookshelf at home for all the classics that I have, and I don't know why, but Metamorphosis sort of jumped out to me. I was like, I haven't read it in so long. I haven't read any of Kafka's other work, and I think this could be a good way to jump into him and see if my older self enjoys him a little bit more, because I know he is so iconic and incredible, and very well known. And so I'm really excited to end the year off on this. I think it'll also be a little bit philosophical and reflective, hopefully not too depressing, but we'll see, you know, entering a new year. And yeah, I do think I have a small thing where I like to end and start a reading year with something that I know will be very solid, and so hopefully this will be that for me. Guys, we're at the part of the book where I know what's going to happen, or I feel like I know what's going to happen, and the characters don't, and I'm so stressed. Oh, I gotta keep going. So y'all, this turned out to be unexpectedly the perfect timing to make a reading vlog because I just finished Time of the Flies and it might be my favorite book of this year. I'm planning on going through all the books I read this year for next week's yearly reading wrap-up, so we'll see if that holds true still. Yeah, this is definitely one of the best books I have read in recent memory. One of the first books in a while that just completely flew by and I lost track of time, and I was so immersed in the world and the plot and just wanting to know what happened, and was completely just blown away by every element of it. Who is Claudia Pineiro, y'all, and why does she keep making me feel this way? Honestly, I feel like I would need years and like a bunch of classes to fully unpack everything in this book and all the things that Pineiro is trying to talk about, but I'm going to try my best to do it some justice now with no spoilers. I would say the book revolves around the lives of 4 women at the center of the story, and even within just these 4 women, there's so much range. There's mothers and daughters, there's wealth and working class, and also previously incarcerated, women of different sexualities, of different family backgrounds, and like I mentioned earlier in this video, the story starts with one of the women ultimately asking Inez, who's the main character and who's an insect fumigator, to help her carry out a crime by selling her some poison. And in classic Pineiro fashion, it unravels so fast and it just gets so entangled and tied up and takes all these twists and turns that you don't expect. Like, the actual story itself takes place over I think a week, but the backstory is like almost 2 to 3 decades of backstory with a lot of these characters, and it brings up their histories. We slowly figure out each of these 4 women as the story goes on, and you get very attached to them, and I felt like they were so incredibly real, which is something Pineiro does really well as well, is she shows each of the characters on their own, makes us feel for them, makes us understand them, and then shows also the ways they don't really understand each other or they are misunderstanding each other. And in classic sort of mystery novel fashion, the ways in which they think they know what they're doing or what the other person's gonna do, but they don't, but the reader does, because she's planted all these hints and red herrings. Oh my gosh. I've learned over time that I really love books that center on character, that first and foremost value realistic, interesting, central characters of the novel, but then have an interesting plot that makes sense with the emotional realities of each of these characters and their relationships and sort of their assumptions about each other. And Pineiro does this so incredibly well. Again, I'm not going to spoil anything, but just like Elena knows, I had no idea what was going to happen at the end, and I thought I knew what was going on, and then I obviously didn't, and none of the women did, and it was just a complete mess, and I was so emotionally invested, and the end was so beautiful. Wow, it was incredible. And the best part is her writing is so beautiful, and the translation, like I mentioned before, is so seamless, and I just feel like I was also really enjoying the language, which is truly like the best case scenario. She's such a clean writer. The metaphor of the flies in this story in particular is so interesting and so well developed and really beautiful, because dialogue is one of the things I consider most important in a book. The dialogue is perfect, like genuinely so perfect to each character. Yeah, I don't even know what else to say. It's so rare to find a book that is well written, that has these really lovable and interesting and fascinating complex characters, and then also a very fast-paced story that's really easy to grasp, but also that takes all these twists. I literally just want to recommend this book to everyone right now. The last thing I wanted to say is that one of the best parts is how she integrates social issues, very contemporary ones as well, into her books, and without feeling tacky at all. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting about this book is that it's a book largely about women and women's rights and a person's right to choose their own version of life, whether that be motherhood, whether that be their version of a family or their version of love, or even about their own body. And the genius thing that Pineiro did in this book is that she has this recurring chorus, almost like in Greek tragedies, like she has Medea lines as well, but it's a chorus of a bunch of voices and we can't tell who's really speaking. They're all definitely in conversation with each other. And within the chorus, she links in a bunch of little quotes and things from texts by a bunch of thinkers, from Cimabue Ngozi Adichie to like Rebecca Solnit to whoever else, and it's just so cool to read. It's not frequent enough to distract you from the rest of the book, but it's also constantly reminding you that this is a political book, this is dealing with real life issues, and that women are facing these questions in their daily lives that are very complex as well. I actually feel so lucky that the book that sort of randomly fell into my hands was this one, and that I got to find another gem of a book before the end of this year. Hopefully after watching this video, you have some time to read Time of the Flies pretty soon, or Elena Knows, or any of Claudia Pineiro, or any other book that you will really enjoy and sort of be able to get into before the end of the year. Please let me know what books have made you feel this excited recently, or if you have any books that you feel like might be similar to Time of the Flies and that I might enjoy down below. I've been really enjoying all of your recommendations, and hopefully we'll get to some of them in 2025. With that, I think I'm going to end this video here and go off to read Martyr and Metamorphosis before the end of the year, and come back to you guys next week with my reading wrap up, and I'll see you then. Thanks for watching. Bye!